Right. That's great. Thanks, Ben. Okay. I asked you can sit next to me if you want. I asked on Twitter if there are any questions. I didn't get any, which is probably just as well because I can't actually look at my questions and at Twitter at the same time on an iPad, so I can't do that. But I just want to plunge straight in with the questions for the panel. If you do have questions, you can wave about. Let's just start with the Yandex seats. What's this about the Yandex seats? There is a question over here, so maybe it would work better if the lights came up a little bit. There is actually a question over here. You're going to have to shout. There is a microphone, but I don't think they're really ready for us yet. Go on, Ben, down you go.
Thank you for the mic.
No, questions, not speeches.
Okay, so it's quite simple question, and it's exactly to you. And it says, do you consider it a fair business practice when Google stimulates publishers using DoubleClick for publishers to use AdSense, and after that punishes them when DoubleClick for publishers puts ads into iframes just because the terms of use of AdSense forbid placing ads in iframes?
You have to hand the mic back now. Yeah, because otherwise you can't. Otherwise you can't answer.
First, when I, as a publisher, use DoubleClick for publishers, I'm stimulated by Google to use AdSense. This is the first ad serving which is offered to me. After that, I'm punished for breaching terms of use of AdSense for using DFP, just because DFP places AdSense served ads into iframes.
Okay, so right, we might actually have to take that one offline because this man is an ad operations expert with 7 years at AOL, but that one went over my head. So you can answer it quickly if you want to, but we're coming back to the subject of the panel immediately after.
Yeah, we can go back. I mean, it's a misunderstanding, and it's something that I would recommend you. We can talk about it afterwards for sure, and I promise you I can fix your problem.
Right. Okay, so that's always the danger of user participation Twitter, isn't it? Oh. Yes. But actually, Ali, I want to start with you. Live conversations. You talked about live conversations. You showed really great examples of great big marketing operations responding really quickly to things that are happening. Andy Murray, for those of you who are twittering, worrying a bit about how many Brits there are on stage, I saw one of those as we're going through. Andy Murray was using an example, really fast response from one of his sponsors. But what does live conversations really mean to a marketeer?
Yep. So I think it's firstly important to recognize that any live event, whether it's a television show or a sporting event or something as newsworthy as what occurred here a few months ago, is talked about and captured on Twitter. And with respect to events and television programs, it's important for marketers to recognize that there's actually scenario planning that they can do in advance of those events occurring. Even with a sporting event, you know which teams are going to play one another. You know the names of the players. You know the names of the coaches, and so you can prepare for that and figure out how to embed yourselves into the types of conversations that'll occur by putting together really good creative. And then, in the sort of infamous Oreo example that we gave, it's also important to be ready and anticipate unexpected moments. But I think that the key takeaway is that with any real-time event, with any event in general, there are things that we know about that event, the types of conversations that are going to occur. People generally talk about the same things with respect to episodic television on a weekly basis.
Okay.
And we can work with marketers to give them visibility into what kinds of conversations are occurring and how they can very seamlessly integrate themselves into those conversations.
Fine. So, Marco, Paul, Carsten. Does that work for you? Live conversations? You're the programmatic guys. Can you make that work? Can you respond in that kind of time scale?
I don't know, is my mic working? I mean, look, I think Twitter is very specific, right? It's a particular tool, and we're not really, we're trying to respond to the whole ecosystem, not just our own platform. So I think the equivalent example of that would be where, you know, we're able to work with our advertisers now who are investing in, let's say, Google Search. They're investing in what their stuff they're doing on YouTube. Those customers are coming into the client's website via these different mechanisms. The key for us is to be able to communicate with them quickly after that and decide, you know, in terms of recency, decide whether we need to talk to them in half an hour, in which case we might, you know, FBX and all the Facebook inventory will get us there because everyone's logging in 9 times a day. Or maybe we've got a day or 2 days in which to talk to them. So I guess our equivalent real-time scenario is more like that. But when Twitter make all of their advertising inventory available in the exchanges as well, then, you know, they'll also be included in that.
So you argued, Marco, in your presentation that real-time bidding, real-time advertising, we can debate those two things in a minute, but real-time bidding actually builds value for publishers. Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you arguing, and this, I mean, I'm expecting the other guys to jump in, but are you arguing that that is because it just saves money? Or are you expecting this is going to be a yield positive thing for advertising?
I think there's two parts of it, and a third part which is evolving. The first part is it is now a fact that across most of the markets that have now developed in this space, it is better yield using exchanges and going into the RTB space than it is selling at a flat CPM to ad networks. That is reasonably conclusive evidence, right? So, you know, people can argue about it, but on the whole, that seems to be the facts. Then what's happening is the businesses that are doing this, who have learnt to benefit from that first stage, are now doing two things. First, they're working hopefully closely with us to find out what other inventory and how much more expansive they can be about whether it's formats or positions or type of inventory, which is definitely more and more premium in its nature. And the second thing is they are starting to, if you look at the big newspaper groups certainly in the UK and France and so on, they're completely reshaping their business now to make the most of the programmatic space, but importantly then invest in the premium end of their direct sales operation. So,
for the panel in general, is the future really more about real-time bidding, or is it really more about real-time advertising?
I would say that it's not only about both. Certainly, everything is going to be happening in real time, but I think that there's also an important fact that that it needs to work across all media, and it needs to happen not only in an auction environment, but also in a guaranteed environment. But all of that aside, everything that is standardized will move to programmatic. It is just that matter of efficiency that comes from not having more people's hands in the pie doing things, that comes with the integration, that will drive all of the advertising for the future.
But is this just like the paperless office? Like somehow or other the theory is it's all going to be automatic, just like I worked at Microsoft 15 years ago. The paperless office was announced, yeah? I haven't noticed it yet. Are we really taking people out of this game? Or is it that what we're really doing is just changing the workflow and just changing what people do? Different people rather than no people?
It's not about getting rid of people, it's about using them more efficiently, like getting them to do the job that ideally they were employed to do. If you're employed to be a planner, you should be planning. You shouldn't be shuffling paper around the office. That's all it is. It's not about getting rid of people per se, although that is a possibility in some cases. But it is about, instead of paying someone a lot of money to come and sit and work through an Excel sheet for half their day. That's
and
not
so
good
for
value.
the FD at Vivaki, can you point to those savings? Can you actually say, look how much I've saved?
We know how much an individual person, if you know, at its crudest level, how much spend can one person manage on their own, if you like. and we can compare that to how it works within a media agency. Yeah, so you can see those metrics.
Okay.
I think those are also
I think it was a really important point. I think when we go back to the original example, Ali mentioned that, a lot of pre-work was done before the event happened. Okay, so as he mentioned, we found out who the two teams were that were playing, who the coach was. Definitely agree that yes, programmatic can do a lot of the heavy lifting, but you need a human element. There's no programmatic system in the world that will be able to put into place all of that research. It needs to be done, as I mentioned in my point, with a human element. So I think, what I would imagine is that, programmatic, as Ben said, yes, will make life a lot easier when it comes to the execution, but you still need to have some form of human, non-programmatic element to actually be able to get the creative to say the right message, to target the right moment, and have it ready to go.
Yeah, I think it's moving from tracking, from trafficking to data analysis, to creative, to places where there's much more impact in the thought process than copying, pasting ad tags from emails and Excel spreadsheets into ad servers.
So mobile is notoriously complex. So would you agree?
Actually not. We're trying to make it as simple as possible, and I fully agree with your earlier comments that we, as an industry, and that's what we are trying to do at Advertise, is to provide a platform which works across all the publishers. So we're integrated into Google, into Facebook. We're also integrated into MoPub, which is now part of the Twitter group. So soon the media agencies and the advertisers will have the option to come to us directly and purchase their standard mobile display advertising campaigns across all those publishers. And I fully agree with your earlier comment, Ben, that there's always going to be a room for the specialty that will not move to programmatic in the foreseeable future, next 5 to 10 years, because there's a higher element of consulting and advice involved. But in the performance bit, that's something which we're certainly seeing. So I would probably disagree. Having said that, I have a bit of a vested interest here.
Yes, you certainly do. Ali, you got the opportunity not to reinvent the mistakes of the past. The Twitter sales team. What does all these new technologies mean for the way in which you're setting up the Twitter sales organization?
Yeah, I want to echo what Ben said earlier. I think it's a combination of real time and programmatic. It's why we made the MoPub acquisition. The world is clearly headed in the programmatic and mobile direction, and we believe MoPub is the best company in that space. We're gonna open up our platform and Twitter ads to real-time bidding. RTB is something that agencies and partners have been asking for a while. So we'll spend the next couple quarters making that a reality now that the acquisition is closed. And in addition to that, we're going to be able to expand their publisher network and make native ads available to whoever's interested in them.
And an extra $1.6 billion in cash raised today also will help.
Somebody's been watching the web. Yeah, I think round of applause for Twitter, I think, probably. But if not just on the basis that they got more tweets. So though one of the funniest tweets I saw, I was watching whilst Ali was speaking, actually quite conceivably came from a member of his team, I don't know. But it did say Ali Jafari, VP Direct Sales, Twitter, on stage, exclamation mark, exclamation, exclamation mark. And then the picture was actually put up on Facebook. So I'm still looking around, desperate to see if the audience, the Yandex audience or the other audience actually wants to put a question in that's on the subject of the debate. And I can't see one. So, I can't. Can I see? Oh, there is one. Paul Dayhill. Don't let him have the mic for too long, Ben.
Thank you. Question around Twitter, really, after today and everything that's happened. Obviously, sorry, I'm not going to make this a long question. With Facebook, everyone sort of looked at that. I think it was like 26 times their previous year's revenue, something like that. And you can imagine the pressure they must be under to try and deliver those revenues, and seem to be doing all right at getting in that direction. It's difficult, but in terms of the sort of moves they've made commercially, are there things in that Twitter is going to try and replicate, and are there some things that you definitely wouldn't do?
So I'm not going to comment on things that Facebook has done.
He has to be really careful about what he can actually say today.
Or anything related to their business model. I think we're going to continue to try and deliver value to advertisers. We're going to continue to deliver value to our users, and we'll continue operating the company as we always have.
So my final question, because Plamin's come on stage, which is sort of his kind of big hint that it's basically all over. But my final question, as a novice in the territory of private marketplaces, as we just roll out ours for the first time, so should I be putting my inventory into the private marketplace the same way as Condé Nast do, which is 10% above the price that their direct sales team charge? Or should I be following Google's advice and be pricing it at 20% below the price that the direct sales team sell out? Maybe the programmatic guys could tell me which way I should approach this.
I would say that all of that is very nuanced, right? So from a perspective of a publisher, there's certainly inventory that should be priced quite a bit above the average, and also inventory that's quite a bit below. So understanding what your homepage is and your above the fold inventory is versus that which is below the fold or in photo galleries, I think that sort of nuance should go into your pricing strategy, as well as understanding who's consuming the media. So you would want to price your auto intenders different than your sports enthusiasts. So there is some inventory that is should be priced much higher, and others which should be priced lower.
I think it's also interesting. I mean, really the best person to actually answer that question is the publisher themselves. I mean, the publisher is the person that knows what is the valuable, what's less valuable, and what's really difficult to shift. So, to actually have a one-size-fits-all seems a very strange strategy, and I would say it's a bit unfair, really, putting a lot of the emphasis on, the Googles, the exchanges. I think they're a way of facilitating.
They're quite forward with their advice.
I think it's really ultimately down to the publishers themselves. As I said, I think they're the ones ultimately that know their site better than anyone else. And I'd like to think that, yes, these mechanisms of programmatic, whatever you want to call them, are just vehicles for them to maximize the opportunities available to them.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd also say that it's difficult to think about pricing in general without having some sort of a success metric in place, whether it's CPA or ROI. It's the onus is on marketers to identify what that number is and work backwards on what prices they're willing to incur or pay to try and achieve those results.
Okay, any comments?
I would just say, like everything in life, you should try different pricing strategies. As buyers, we will buy something where there is value to be had, and that can be high, it can be low, it doesn't really matter. But it would be like buying Google search and saying, well, I'm only going to pay €1 for everything, right? You're not going to appear, you're not going to win any auctions or anything. So it's the same in this business. You need to value what you think is right. We'll try lots of different iterations of that. If the money comes in, you'll know you're getting it right, and if it doesn't, maybe you're pricing yourself a bit high.
And should mobile just be cheap? Everybody thinks mobile should be cheap.
I would disagree again. Where we are seeing in parts better conversion rates and metrics on mobile compared to the same publisher on the desktop. So I think there's a good argument to be made to also then charge higher prices. But obviously you need to get it right because the differential still needs to be positive if we as a mobile industry want to ensure that the ad dollars are shifting quicker from online to mobile.
And finally for Plamin, so this was pretty amazing these past 2 days. So is it going to be better next year?
Tom, first of all, it's amazing because of all these people here in the audience and because of you guys. It's amazing for having you here. I'm truly honored. As I said, I'm not crying, I just don't have a voice, but I mean it from my heart. And it feels like we've left the best for last. It's been an amazing panel. I've seen the tweets. These guys here, they're really great. They had the power inside of themselves to listen to that point after 2 days full of so much content of 250 speakers. So can it be better? Of course it can be better. It should be better. Where else can we go? Yeah. Do you promise you're going to be here with us next year?
No, I expect we'll be back. Yeah.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody here in the room. Tom, thank you for taking the role of the moderator. I appreciate it very much.